December 7th, 1941, a date not to be forgotten. The soldiers and citizens working and living on Pearl Harbor Base in Honolulu, Hawaii, woke up like it was going to be a regular day, but soon would find out that it was not going to be a normal day at all.
At the same time, the most destructive war in history was being fought in Europe, where an estimated 1.5 million children were being tortured and killed during the reign of Adolf Hitler. Hitler began his reign of Germany in 1933. In a little more than 2 years, Hitler would form the Luftwaffe, an aerial warfare branch of the German Wehrmacht, which is a direct violation of the 1919 treaty that ended World War I. A year later, he would also remilitarize the Rhineland in western Germany. The most used date to describe the start of the Second World War is September 3rd, 1939, when France and Great Britain declared war on Germany after Hitler's forces invaded Poland.
On America's side, they would end up sending about 2 million of their soldiers to Europe to fight the war. Most of these soldiers were ill-trained and some were drafted and forced to go into the war. By the end of it all, almost 240,000 of those soldiers' lives were taken at war. The war also cost the United States federal government a total of about $321 billion between the years of 1941 to 1945. America would have most likely not have fought in World War II if it wasn't for the events that occurred on December 7th.
In Hawaii, the soldiers and civilians that woke up that morning did not expect that they were going to be attacked by the Japanese military.
This attack was a well-thought-out, successful plan, but it was not decisive, as the 3 U.S. carriers of the Pacific Fleet that the Japanese were meant to target were not in harbor at the time. Japanese forces trained for about a year to prepare for the attack.
The first Japanese dive bomber arrived at 7:55 a.m. Japan soon flew in 200 aircrafts, along with 6 aircraft carriers, 2 battleships, 3 cruisers, and 11 destroyers. During this first wave of attack, a specific field named Wheeler Field had 126 planes on the ground. Out of those 126 airplanes, 42 were completely destroyed. 41 of them were damaged, and the remaining 43 were left fit to fly. Only 6 U.S. planes were able to even get in the air to attempt to repel the attack. During the first 30 minutes, the Japanese did great deals of damage to the battleships that were in the harbor. One of the most well-known ships that was destroyed was the USS Arizona when it blew up in the harbor. Other ships that were damaged were the USS West Virginia, the USS Oklahoma that was hit by 4 torpedoes and turned over. The other ships included the USS California and the target ship for the Japanese, the USS Utah.
By 8:50 that morning, the Japanese had begun their second wave of attacks. The second wave was less successful than the immediate attack, but it still did damage. The USS Nevada was hit by torpedoes and several bombs. The USS Pennsylvania was bombed and caught on fire, and USS Shaw was cut into 2 pieces. Just after 9 a.m., the Japanese withdrew from the harbor.
By the end of the attacks, a total of 2,403 people died. Those casualties included 2,008 Navy soldiers, 109 Marines, and 218 Army soldiers. The remaining deaths were 68 civilians. Out of those, 1,177 casualties were caused when the USS Arizona was bombed. There was a total of 1,143 people that were just injured from the attacks. On the opposite side, the Japanese only lost 55 men. The Japanese also ended up losing from 29 to 60 planes.
Even though these attacks were a surprise to most people, there were warnings of war to people who had command of the base. The 2 people in command of Pearl Harbor, Admiral Husband E. Kimmel and Lieutenant General Walter C. Short, were warned on October 16th, November 24th, and 27th of 1941. Kimmel and Short did take measures to prevent and defend an attack, but it was not enough. Short gave orders to concentrate most of the planes in Pearl Harbor to Wheeler Field. He also gave orders for people to control radars from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Prior to the attacks, they also saw many unidentified objects in the water and the air, including a Japanese submarine that got a depth charge dropped on it. But the Japanese already began their attack before they could get confirmation of what it was. Prior to the attack, a fleet of Japanese aircrafts were also on their radar, but were disregarded because American B-17 bomber planes were supposed to be there at the time. The next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt went to Congress asking for war. The Senate approved his request, voting 82-0. The House of Representatives voted 388 to 1. President Roosevelt named December 7th, 1941, a day in which will live in infamy. To summarize, America declared war on Japan. 3 days later, on December 11th, Germany declared war on the U.S. along with Japan.
These attacks were the most investigated episodes in U.S. history until the September 11th attack in 2001.
This broke many barriers and changed the world for a lot of people in the U.S. This also caused the Pacific War.
This attack on Pearl Harbor changed the U.S. and the world in many different ways. If it weren't for this attack, the U.S. could have not been involved with the Second World War at all. The lives of many people were changed because of the Japanese sneak attack. Some people lost beloved family members, not just in attacks, but also the soldiers that were sent to fight in the war in Europe. In conclusion, the attacks on Pearl Harbor made by the Japanese changed the world in many ways. After December 7th, when the Japanese attacked, many people's lives were changed permanently and was a possible reason why the U.S. decided to go fight in the most destructive war in history.